For decades, scientists have been taking life apart piece by piece. But what if we're finally at a point where we can see the master plan, the actual blueprint that makes the whole thing tick? That's what we're talking about today, this amazing field called systems biology. All right, so here's what we've got lined up. We're going to start with the parts list of life, then see how we go from those parts to a whole working system. We'll look at how scientists actually build biological models and what those models tell us about nature's survival toolkit. Then, we'll get into the really cool stuff, how this is fixing the human machine, and the ultimate goal, a complete human blueprint. Let's get into it. Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the parts list of life. So we've managed to read the entire book of life, but what does it actually say? That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, just stop and think about this. The Human Genome Project, what an incredible achievement. We literally have the entire sequence, all 3 billion letters of our DNA. It's like someone handed us the complete parts list for a human being. Every single gene, every possible protein. But here's the thing, a list of parts doesn't tell you the whole story, does it? So that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? If we've got the instruction manual, this massive parts list, then why can't we just cure every single disease? Why are we still struggling? Seems like we should just be able to find the broken part and, fix it. And right there, that's the absolute crux of the problem. Knowing all the parts, the genes, the proteins, all the little molecules, that's just not the same as knowing how the machine actually works. You can have a garage full of car parts, but that doesn't mean you can build an engine. And that massive gap, that's exactly what systems biology is here to solve.
So, how do we start building that engine? Well, that brings us right into our second section, moving from just the parts to seeing the whole picture.
So, what exactly is systems biology? Well, in a nutshell, it's the science of putting everything together. It's about integration. Instead of staring at one single gene or one tiny protein under a microscope, it's about zooming out and asking, how do all these pieces talk to each other? How do they interact to create, life itself?
Yeah, this car parts analogy really nails it. Traditional biology gave us that amazing list of parts, but systems biology, that's all about creating the blueprint for the working engine. It's about seeing the whole network, all the crazy feedback loops, the entire dynamic dance that makes something alive.
Okay, so the goal is to create this grand blueprint. But how on earth do you do that? I mean, how do you even start to make a model of something as insanely complex as a living cell? Well, that's exactly what we're getting into in Section 3, building a biological model. Turns out there are two main ways scientists go about this. You've got the bottom-up approach, which is kind of like building with Legos. You take the pieces you already know really well and see how you can fit them together to build something bigger. Then there's the top-down approach. This is where you just take a giant mountain of data, like all the genomics info, dump it into a supercomputer, and let it crunch the numbers to find the patterns, to find the hidden network. It's like being a digital detective. All right, so we're building these super complex virtual models of life. But what are we learning from them? What secrets are they revealing? That leads us straight to Section 4, Nature's Survival Toolkit. And what we're finding is that, honestly, life is just a brilliant engineer. And the key idea here, the big one, is something called robustness. Just think about your own body for a second. You're hit with temperature changes, different foods, maybe a little stress, and inside, your cells are constantly making tiny little errors. But through it all, you just keep going. That's robustness. It's life's ability to take a hit, whether from the inside or the outside, and just keep on ticking. It's the secret sauce.
So how does life pull this off? It really comes down to 3 main tricks. First, you've got system control. Think of this like a thermostat in your house, constantly making little adjustments to keep things stable. Then there's redundancy. This is just a fancy way of saying life always has a backup plan, or 2 or 3. If one part fails, another one can step in. And finally, modular design. This is super clever. It's about keeping different jobs in different compartments so that if one thing breaks, it doesn't bring the whole house down.
This computer analogy for modularity is just perfect. Seriously, think about it. You start with the tiniest components, your genes and proteins, which are like transistors. They get grouped into little devices, which act like the logic gates in a chip. Those devices then form bigger modules that do the heavy lifting, kind of like a CPU. And when you put all those modules together, you get the whole system. A living cell. It's this beautiful layered design built from the ground up.
Okay, so this is all fascinating theory. But what about the real world? What's the payoff? That's Section 5, fixing the human machine. Because this isn't just about understanding life. It's about changing medicine forever.
With this kind of blueprint, we can do some absolutely incredible things. Imagine creating a virtual model of a patient and their specific disease, and then testing thousands of treatments on a computer before ever giving them a single pill. We can start designing drugs and dosages that are tailor-made for your unique biology. And looking further out, we're talking about huge leaps in regenerative medicine, maybe even developing organs. It's a total game changer, moving us toward medicine that is truly, truly personal.
So, where does this all end? What's the ultimate goal here? That brings us to our final section, and a pretty wild question. Are we on the verge of creating the ultimate human blueprint?
We've talked about the genome, that's the parts list. You might have heard of the proteome, that's the catalog of all the proteins. But the next step is what some are calling the systosome. And this isn't a static list, oh no. This is the dynamic, living, breathing blueprint. It's a complete picture of how a system, like one of your cells, actually behaves, how it responds to things, how it changes over time. This is the next massive frontier.
And the ambition, it is just staggering. Just look at this goal from the Human Cysteome Project. They want to create a detailed, comprehensive simulation of a human cell. And not just that, but to map out how all genetic variations respond to drugs. And they were aiming to get this done by 2030. We are talking about the quest to build a virtual human. It's mind-boggling. And that leaves us with one last, pretty profound thought to chew on. Just imagine it. Imagine having a perfect digital twin of your own body. A simulation so accurate it could predict exactly how you would react to a new medicine, or a different diet, or even how you'll age. If we had that, a perfect simulation of ourselves, what would we even do with it? That's a question that could change everything we know about medicine and maybe even what it means to be human.